Okay, I know you guys are fans of analytics. Well, I've got horrible news for you. 36 teams have been down 0-2, 37 now with the Mavs. Only 5 have come back to win. Those are them right there.
That's an analytic stat?
It's not really analytics, but it's data.
Okay,
It is
well,
data.
attack me because your picks are about to be.
No, all right. Well,
It's analytics.
Another way to look at it is the last team down 0-2 came back to win. The most recent team down 0-2 came back to win. That is also true. That was
That has
shown.
nothing to do with the Mavs.
Oh, okay, but go ahead. But as you were, the question.
Panic time?
Brew, how can you, me, or anyone panic when everyone knows the series hasn't even started yet? I mean, the series is yet to start, and as Wilds taught us 2 weeks ago, oddly, the Mavs now have home court advantage. Even though they're down 0-2, they have home court advantage.
3 more games in Dallas.
With all that said, while it is not panic time, I will be fair here. There are some very concerning signs.
Yes.
That is not. That's not deniable. And the fact that right now, and I know we'll talk specifically about Luka and Tatum's games more at length later, but I thought Luka played an A-ish game, and I thought Tatum played a D-ish game.
D-?
And
No, we didn't.
And the Celtics won. The fact that going into the fourth quarter, the team that is more reliant on the three than any team in the league had 6 of them, and they won.
Yeah,
the fact that this was once again a game where I think the Mavs would say, held them to 105, even if some of that was good luck, is just because of missed shots. Defensively, we'll take that, and still the Celtics won. That all of those things are very concerning. I think that right now, you would have to say, given how Kyrie's playing, Boston has the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th best players. how they're playing. I think Luka's played the best of everyone, and I think 2 through 6 belongs to Boston. Now, we thought
at least
3 through 6, or I'm sorry, we thought that basically 5 through 8 could belong to Boston because we thought it'd be Luka and Kyrie and Tatum and Brown would be in the top 4, but Kyrie's not picking up his end of the bargain. But here's what I'll say, Brew. The reason I don't think all hope is lost is because I will reference that Bucks series. Because what happened in that Bucks series when a Suns team that was on a 60-win caliber Suns team, it was a shortened season, so they didn't win 60. They were up 2-0, and they had dominated both those 2 games. What happened? We can show it to you quickly. Giannis took his game to a whole nother level. And by the way, in Game 2, much like Game 2 for Luka, he played really well, and they still got rocked. And then Giannis took over. So do I think that's in play for Luka? Of course I do.
Let's be very clear about that series. They went up against a young, inexperienced Phoenix Suns team where Chris Paul's health was questionable. They were relying on, Ayton. I mean, they were just the whole thing. That team was practically just all role players and no true elite stars. I mean, it's just that's what the Phoenix Suns really are. I mean, we can talk about how they made it competitive and won some games, but to me, Giannis in that series was obviously, and Chris Middleton, don't forget about it, but obviously more Giannis was the bona fide superstar, and no one else was really there. You had other players that were good. Devin Booker is obviously a great player. Devin Booker has not really crossed over to the superstar, right? Like he just hasn't. He disappears too much. He doesn't have that consistency. He's never really even remotely carried a team to success. He's always needed a lot of this other support. And it's not to say that you don't need support, but it's just he is not on that level. The Celtics are a stacked roster. Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Drew Holiday. These are all experienced, bona fide players now. Players that have either won a ring. First off, the Giannis and the Bucks had Drew Holiday, who played amazing defense and amazing high IQ basketball that was also incredibly important for the Bucks to win. They don't have that. The Dallas Mavericks do not have that. It is just live or die by Luka and Kyrie. That was not the Bucks. The Bucks were not just live or die by Giannis. Don't get me wrong. Giannis was the engine, and they needed Giannis. But they still had these other pieces to pick it all up. The Phoenix Suns were a wildly inferior team relative to who the Celtics are. So I disagree with that, using that as a reference point. It's just silly.
But do I think there are right now really systemic issues with how Dallas is struggling dealing with Boston's defense?
Yeah.
Yes, I do. And all the role players don't seem ready for the moment right now.
I'm not hitting the panic button yet, but it's within eye shot. It's right there, and I'm watching. All right, they got one shot. Game 3. We all know you go down 3-0, it's over. All right, so they got to do something. And I want to credit the Celtics.
Yep.
They have played tremendously. They look like a great team. And I think I was specifically, we were the first ones we brought up. They look a lot like the 04 Pistons, Detroit Pistons, where it's just a great team. Big names, Chauncey, Rasheed, but a great team. And this looks like a great team versus a one-man show. All right, and here's the proof that it's a team. They got 5 guys averaging more than 15 points a game, 16 and more. All right, the last team to do that in the NBA Finals, the 1987 Lakers, with Magic Johnson, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, James Worthy, through the first 2 games of the series. All right, guess how many the Mavs have?
1.
Averaging more than 16 points or more. They got 1.
Yeah, Luka.
One, it is Luka Doncic versus the Boston Celtics.
Well, that won't work.
You said what I just said.
It's not working. I mean, and I don't know if the other guys, the moments to be, they need Kyrie and Luka to create for them. PJ Washington is playing all right.
Played fine.
He's doing
I think
fine.
he's played well. He's the only one.
Right. Kyrie just is not playing well, and I know we're going to get to Kyrie, but like I said, they can't beat Boston if Kyrie's not great. All right, Luka has played well enough to win. Kyrie's got to hold up his end of the bargain.
You think he's going to play great? I feel like that's...
Kyrie, well, he better. That's the only chance they got. Not
I
good,
think he can
not
get
good.
to pretty
great.
good. But Drew is on him. I don't think great is off the board.
He's got to be great.
Do you think he has to be great for a whole game? Because I thought yesterday was an example where if he could have just been great for a 5-minute stretch in the fourth quarter, they could have stolen the game.
If he's great, I mean, if he has a stretch and he ends up having 27 points, but most of it was in a spurt or a lot of it, that's fine.
Okay, yes.
I don't think we need to great. He's Kyrie Irving. I'm not asking Derrick Jones Jr. to be great. I'm asking Kyrie Irving. All right. Now, one thing they can do is they got to play faster. They have to play faster because they were in the top 6 or 7 in pace all season. And Boston likes a slow
Luka
pace.
can't handle that now.
All right, and this has been a slow-paced series, these 2 games. And what happens when you play slow against Boston, guess what? You have to face that great half-court defense when it's set. And Kyrie, and again, we'll get to him, but they're struggling against that defense. So they got to try to pick up the pace if they want to get back into this game.
Luka can't do that. He can't sustain that because he's exhausted. He's tired. This is the longest he's ever played in his NBA career. He is such a massively high usage player. He can't sustain it. He can't sustain it. So you can't play faster. And you're right. If you do slow it down or even just play at an average pace, the Celtics have such a great perimeter defense and wing players that can just run everyone off their spots. Like they're just so good. That's not what the Timberwolves had. The Timberwolves, on the other hand, had a different type of defense, more rim protection, was able to stop points in the paint, that the Celtics just have the ability to kind of just run forever. And that is not what the Timberwolves were able to have, which is why the Celtics have been able to, quite frankly, be very dominant in that regard. I mean, and it's just such a luxury that you have someone like a Porzingis who's just blocking shots left and right, knocking down shots like he's KD. You have Jason Tatum, you have Jaylen Brown. I mean, like you have Drew Holiday. Their roster is just stacked. That's what it comes down to. They have a stacked roster. Kudos to the Boston Celtics for creating that roster. That's what it was. They're a great player. They don't need Jason Tatum to put up 30-plus points to win a game in the NBA Finals. Imagine how much of a luxury that is. I could understand in a regular season game, but for them to be able to win without having their number one guy in Jason Tatum, not even put up. I don't even know how. Did he even have like 25 last night? I forget. I think it was like 18 points. He might have ended up getting a little over 20, but he wasn't a deep run. But he did a lot of other things, a lot of assists, rebounds, good defense, some good steals, and assists. But right, it's just Luka or no one. And this is what I've been saying about Kyrie. Kyrie, I cannot handle the heat in that moment. You can see him like shutting down and continuing to make more and more mistakes. I think that there's great potential for Kyrie to ball out at home with Dallas. And you're right. And now if Dallas does win that game, then it's 2-1. And then it's like, okay, here we go. And then there's a lot of pressure to win that fourth game, because then it's either 3-1 or 2-2. And then once it's 2-2, it's just like, well, anything can happen, right? But the difference is, to me, is that the Celtics really are in control. When the Mavs were trying to kind of shrink the lead, make a run in both games, really to a degree, the Celtics are now, they're no longer that young, immature team, inexperienced team. They're mature. They are the perfect age because they're not too old where now they're getting tired, but they're not too young where they still need to learn and figure out how to win. They know it. They know this moment. You could even see when they were mic'd up, and a lot of that stuff is usually generic whenever you hear what they're saying. They're like, come on, guys, keep hustling, keep going. But Jaylen Brown did say when they started, when the Mavs started that game a little hot, relatively speaking, you heard Jaylen Brown say, we knew they were going to do this. Just, don't run from it. Breathe into the moment. It's all good. We knew this was going to happen. It's a little generic, right, to a degree. At least the wording is, but the experience isn't generic. Because sometimes you get high on your own supply. So when you win that first game or the first two games, whatever it may be, when you're a young, immature team, you go into the locker room saying, these guys are not us. They can't stop us. We are the best. And you start to believe it and believe it and believe it. The Boston Celtics know what it was like to feel like we are the best, no one can stop us, only to get punched in the face. And they were, even their coach was like, what it was like to be up 2-1 and still lose in the NBA Finals to, of course, the dynastic Golden State Warriors. So that matters. So there's less panic when that happens. There's just so much happens in basketball where you can see it, the panic, and it unravels. And it's why you get these 20-0 runs that are so common. I mean, every single team experiences it on both sides of the ball. That's why they call timeout so much, because the panic sets, things get flustered. The role players, there really is such a gap between the stars and the superstars and the role players. And things can just unravel very quickly. Very quickly. And that is one of the drawbacks to a Jason Tatum. You can see when he makes a shot, especially last night in game 2. He would be like, finally. Right, and I that is an issue to me, and I think Jason Tatum's amazing. I've been praising him, but that does make me like kind of like, dude, I know you've been missing some shots, whatever. You don't go, oh, finally, can't believe that finally went in. That means you're juggling around in your head too much. You can't think like that. If you missed your first 5 shots, it doesn't matter. You got to just hit the reset button. When Steph Curry misses 5 straight threes and then knocks down that 6th one, he isn't like, oh God, finally. He's like, yeah, that's right. Of course I made the 6th one. Like I was ever not going to make the 6th one. Like you barely ever see that moment when if Steph is exceptionally cold where he's just like, God, nothing will go in. Of course he has those moments too. It just seems to be too common for Jason Tatum. I've seen that a lot, especially in the playoffs, and it's not the mentality that you can have. So that is always like the one thing that I'm like, I wish he would mature a little bit more. But the way how he has matured is that he still continued to do the dirty work. His shots weren't falling, and he wasn't trying to look too much to be bailed out by the refs, a little bit more than I would have liked, because that's also what happens when your shots aren't falling. You just like want to like look to the refs to try to like bail you out. Right, because you also now feel embarrassed that you just missed like 4 layups and the one rolled out, and you just want to like look to the refs and be like, he fouled me, and it's just like, okay, whatever. It's more of like you feeling insecure that you missed, quite honestly. That happens all the time. But again, he's now still playing great defense, assists, rebounds, doing all the dirty work that earlier in his career when he wasn't shooting, he didn't do to at least the level that he's doing now. So that is maturity. That is growth. That is winning basketball. Seeing that someone like Drew Holiday, who's not their lead scorer, became their lead scorer. And it's like, we're going to run with that. We're not going to be like, hey, I can't let Drew do that. Like, I'm supposed to be the star. It's got to be me or Jaylen. Like, no. It's understanding the flow of the game. And this is exactly what the Warriors did. Whether it was Clay, whether it was Steph or at the time, whether it was KD or even Jordan Poole, it was just like, nope, we're just playing collective winning basketball. And that is exactly what the Celtics are doing right now. And it just becomes brutally impossible to beat. I would hit the panic button because what's the point of hitting the panic button if it's too late? You only hit the panic button when like you need to kind of make some moves. So the Mavs should be hitting the panic button because once you're down 3-0, you don't hit the panic button, you hit the game over button. You're just like, I'm done, it's over. So you hit the panic button now, right? But I still think the Mavs can make this a competitive series because Luka is that good and Kyrie can go off at any moment. But at this point, you got to feel pretty good if you're the Boston Celtics. But those are just my thoughts. I would absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think? Do you think that this series is pretty much over, or do you think it hasn't begun yet? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I would absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of, and I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.